Okay, so the lesson today will be about conquering substance abuse, but this will be more as a tool for you to identify ones around you who are abusing substances. This could be friends, family, anyone, and by substances I mean prescription medications, recreational drugs, alcohol, or any addictive thing in their life. It's important to identify the people around you, not only yourself if you are having a problem with substances, but we want to help the ones around you as well. If you can help yourself, or you're taking this class to learn how to identify and help the people around you, then that is what the purpose of this class is going to be. The first objective will be this, well, you guys actually would be investigating the people around you. In the previous lessons, you would have learned, or already have learned, to identify the factors of substance abuse. So this is going to be using those skills in to help the ones around you, which you're investigating the people around you, which is one of the levels of Bloom taxonomy. And you want to, so moving on, why is it important to identify the ones around you who may be abused? So some answers here that I would be looking for is to make for someone to say their friends or family will have a better quality of life if they're not abusing substances, to prolong their life, or them out of jail or prison, because substances are a factor in a lot of people's imprisonment and any kind of criminal record. Substances can, ruin someone's life, and maybe by identifying the person and their problems, we could help them make a change for the better. Question I would say was, how did the previous lessons help with the identification? So the previous lessons would have talked about identifying strange behaviors, physical changes in someone, kind of the look on their face, glassy eyes, red eyes, constantly agitated or irritated, having extreme high and low attitudes, anything like that. That could be a physical. There are several physical identifiers as well, and then a lot of emotional identifiers. I mean, you can just tell by someone's body language, if something's going on. They're easily agitated, they're incredibly sad one moment, on the other moment they're completely, happy and almost in a euphoric state. There are several signs to identify someone who's abusing substances. Some actually may hide it better than others, but eventually that will come out. It does take time to identify. You can't just, sometimes you can look at someone and say, oh, they're abusing this, oh, they have track marks on their arm, oh, they've lost this so much weight, or they've gained so much weight, they look tired, they may not be tired, anything like that. The easiest thing, it's very hard to identify someone that is abusing substances, especially if you're not trained in it or you haven't been around it, worked around it a lot. And the previous lessons would help identify those factors, because in those lessons the factors will be discussed thoroughly. Students would be tested on that, and hopefully they were able to get the important parts of the other lessons as well. There are a lot of people that you want to give the benefit of the doubt, especially friends and family. You want to take emotional stake in their substance abuse or their problem. And it's important that you're able to see through the problem. You don't want them to have the problem. That is just how it is. You want to kind of see them with rose-colored glasses. You don't want to see anything like that, but this is important. You have to break down that wall so they can get help for themselves, because they're going to bring down themselves and you as a person as well. It can be very tiring and very draining dealing with someone who has a substance abuse problem. So you have to almost step back and take the personal out of the take your personal relationship away and only have a relationship that's more professional or in more of a medical standpoint. And that's also important for people to learn as well, that you're gonna have to take a step back from the person if you want to help them, because your emotions are gonna cloud any judgment you have. I mean, the emotional, you're gonna cloud your judgment no matter what, because it is the person. You have an emotional stake with them, you care about them, you've known them, they're blood related, they're family, they're friends, they've been around, and it's important that you kind of extract that relationship, because if not, you're just going to let them continue hurting themselves, and you're going to be continually brought down by them as well. And that's why, healthcare professionals, health education professionals, it's easier to go to learn from them, because you're able to learn the steps, and you're going to learn that it's important to take that personal relationship away. It's still gonna be there. And the relationship is what's caused you to kind of confront the issue. But after that, it needs to be taken away, just for your well-being and their well-being as well. And then the activity that I think this would be a 10 to 15 minute activity. I want the students to pair up. And this is all going to be dealing with kind of physical factors and emotional factors. I want them to pair up, one person being the friend or family member, the other person be the person who is abusing the substance. So they're going to act as if one of them is going to act as if they're on the substance, and see if the other person is able to point out these identifying factors. People can pair up, but I want to assign the person who's doing the acting. I want them, I will tell them, but I won't tell their partner, because I want their partner to be able to identify those factors. And there are several different factors with different substances that there'll be different kind of changes in them. Alcohol addiction and pill addiction have different physical and emotional factors that you can identify. So I want them to be able to do that. And especially if you're in a classroom environment, most of the people are going to be your friends, but some of them will be strangers. So that's another way. That's why it's important to be able to pick out these physical and emotional changes. They need to practice identifying these red flags for substance abuse, because if you misidentify someone who's abusing substances, if they really aren't or they're not, it's important that you are really, really sure, because you could lose a friend or a family member by accusing them of having a substance abuse problem. So this is going to be practice, so any kind of misrepresentation or misidentifying doesn't happen. Every situation is going to be different. Every person who is abusing substances, it's going to be a little bit different, but this will give them some practice in a safe environment with no judgment. So I feel like that's going to help the students, be able to identify and point out things, even if it's not the exact same situation. At least there is kind of a practicing moment, so they're just not going into approaching such a large issue. They don't want to go in there blind at all. They need to have some kind of practice. Nothing can prepare you for this fully, but some preparation can be a lot better than none in these types of situations. So the next objective we have is, so now that we have identified the problem, identified who is using these substances, we want to identify ways to help the person. So there's a lot of different ways that someone can get treatment or education about the substance that they are. So you have identified the person, so now you want to see who it is. So what ways can you help them? The first thing that I want their answers to be is to get education. That's going to be the most important thing when you are dealing with substances. So I want the students to bring back to me, I want them to say that they need to get educated. And another thing could be a treatment program. There's so many treatment programs that are out there. Like this class isn't a 12-step program or anything like that. This is just an education. But there are other classes that can be taken that for this you can have, like for example, this class is an educational course, or someone who's abusing substances, they might want to go into a treatment program. There's private treatment programs, there's ones from hospitals. There are all kinds of programs that someone can get into after they are educated. If the education doesn't work and doesn't scare them enough, then that's when the program needs to come in again. There's also meetings and support groups. That's another answer I want, is because not all people want to do a treatment program. Treatment programs are long, they are extensive, and they can get very expensive. But one thing that are in all treatment programs is a support group, and there are AA meetings, DA meetings, there's all kinds of meetings that people can go to find that support. And sometimes the AA meetings are the only person in the family or the friend group that's dealing with substances. You want someone to lean on, and it's better to go to a stranger because they know exactly what's going on, especially in those groups, and there will be more information within those groups to help with the program. So those are things that they can suggest. There are simple ones, or they can get many. There's more complicated ones with patient treatment programs. There are inpatient and out treatment patients. There's halfway houses. There's all kinds of things that people can do to seek this help. The thing is, how are you going to help determine what program is best? First of all, everyone's different. Their situations are different, and I want the students to realize that. The first thing is to see how long has the abuse been going on. That's one way to, and there also is going to be with how long it's going on is going to be what substance it is. Alcohol and prescription drugs and recreational drugs, cocaine, heroin, meth, anything like that. They're going to be different, ways that people need to treat with, because sometimes people are going to go into heavy detox situations if they're heavily in, and that's when they might need to be in a medical facility, because detoxing can be a horrific thing that you can't really do at home. And so that's kind of one of the factors that will rely in there, and these will be taken from the previous lesson plans. They would have learned that already, kind of what different programs there are for treatment. You have to determine what the substance is, how long has it been going on for, what ties does it hold to the person, how much are they addicted to it. That will all be factors that need to be taken in when you're considering how to help. And then the activity I want to have a group discussion. So we'll do 10 minutes to discuss all of the different program options, treatment options, those identifying factors that we want to get in there. We'll discuss what a person who is addicted to alcohol might need to do versus a person who is addicted to cocaine or meth or prescription pills. We'll discuss every treatment option there is, and then kind of place which one will go into the treatment. So I plan on doing on a whiteboard or something, have the whiteboard write out the different kinds of treatment and help options, and then kind of see what person needs to go under which. And that's going to be the easiest way to kind of get the program organized, because the chart is going to help them see and also think about. So you're going to have a chart to look at, and then you're also going to have to be thinking about it, because it is a heavy issue. So I want them to be able to see it and think of the options for people just so they know and have that information. And then the last, or the third objective, is going to be what do you do when someone doesn't want your help? This is difficult because there are a lot of people that do say no to treatment. It happens every day. Some people deny their abuse. You know, all you can do is educate someone. So what's the next step when they tell you no? No is a hard word to hear, especially in this such a heavy topic as substance abuse and addiction. And I think it's actually going to be heard a lot more often than someone thinks, because addiction is very, very heavy and it weighs on a lot of people. And the addiction and the abuse can be so heavily tied to that person that they just tell you no because they feel like they can't. So after you have educated them and they say no, what is there to do after that? Well, the first thing I would say is you need to identify why they said no. What was their reason? Was it personal? Was they feel like they are too weak to do it? They don't have the time or the energy or the money? Why do they not want help? So the students, I would expect answers like think they can't do it. They've tried before or something and they failed at getting sober. That is obviously, some people are just afraid of failure. Also, some people say no because they feel like that they are so emotionally strained that they need a substance to lean on to bring them happiness or to forget their problems. That's another thing. Another people feel like that treatment, when someone says treatment, that they're talking about a 30-day, 60-day, or 90-day program, but that is not the case. You can get help without having to be admitted into a program. So now I want students to think about, when is it going to be time for them to cut ties with the person who is abusing the substance. It's very hard to cut ties from family and friends because they are family and friends. They are close to you. They're a part of your everyday life. You care about them and you love them. So after you've educated them, then you have recommended different treatment and help options, and they still tell you no. Where do you go from there? Some people may keep trying, and that is up to you. That is going to be dependent on the person that you're trying to help. And also, something else, it's going to be hard for them when to back off. And a lot of people may struggle with backing off. They're just so passionate about the cause that, they will end up draining themselves by trying so hard. And I think that it's important for the students to identify when it is to stop, because it's affecting you as well, because you're taking this time and you're devoting so much energy to help them. But sometimes it's time to let them be selfish and you to back off and be selfish yourself, and know that it is going to harm you more by sitting here and trying. You love them, but if they don't love themselves enough to get help, that is going to be, when you say no. And it is very hard to hear. It's very hard for you to tell someone to give up on the person that they love, but it is going to be a factor. People are going to be told no every day when dealing with substance abuse, and that's just how it goes. And I want the students to realize that they're not failing. So the activity that I want to do is take the rest of class, which is going to be 10 to 15 minutes, and think about, kind of get in their mind. They'll write this down and it'll be private to them in their mind. Who is the person that they're trying to help? And then they need to think about what happens if that person, they've done everything that they could have done. What happens if that person tells you no? Where do you go from there? Do you keep trying? Do you educate them more? Do you try to help, have more recommendations? Or do you walk away? Or there's always the other option with, if this person tells you no, are you going to stick around? What happens if you stick around, and what happens in 6 months? And they're still addicted to this drug and you're still around. Where are you then? I want them to think about their future as well as the person that they're trying to help's future. And I want them to realize that sometimes they might need to tell that person goodbye. I mean, you can only deal with someone who's abusing substances for so long, and it's unfair for yourself. And I want students to be able to get that out of the program, because if you're not here for yourself, you're here for a reason, and that other reason may be someone in your life. And it's important that you take care of yourself as well as trying to take care of someone else. And I want students to be able to know and prepare themselves for someone who says no. So I want them to be able to just take from this, their brainstorming and this critical thinking time, to take and say, okay, if this person says no, this is what I'm going to do, and that is going to be the best option. And this is I don't want this to be discussed with the class, because this is very, very personal, and everyone is different, and I don't want to make someone feel uncomfortable by, voicing what would happen if they failed to help the person. And they also need to know that it's not really a failure, because they did whatever they had to do. They still educated them, and if they don't take that information in, then that's not their fault. So I want them to also know that. And then lastly, we have the references, and we're done